So, welcome to episode number 9 of the Culture, Leadership and EVP podcast. Today has brought us all the way to Stockton upon Tees, and we've got the lovely Grant Glendenning from Education Training Collective. Grant, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, first and foremost, and then a little bit about the college and the wider group?
Certainly, Guy. Yeah, well, welcome to Stockton.
Thank you.
My name's Grant Glendenning. I have been in further education for around about 25 years now. Started my career as an ESOL lecturer originally. Once I finished university, I went and taught abroad, like a lot of people do. English as a foreign language in Central Europe, the Czech Republic and Estonia for a few years. And then coming back to the UK, I got into foreign language teaching in London, where I stayed for about 20 odd years, to be honest.
It's quite hard to get outside the M25 once you're in it, right?
Absolutely. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. Love London, do miss it. But I worked for some great colleges there in London, Hammersmith and West London College, which is now a very different college group, I know, and City and Islington College as well, for a number of years. And then I was looking for a change, really, my wife and I. So we started to look for opportunities outside of London, and an opportunity came up to be the principal of Carlisle College, which I was successful in getting. So that was in about 2018.
Part of NCG, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, very much part of NCG and a great college. And NCG is such an interesting, fascinating group with lots of opportunities, and that role evolved into responsibilities at Newcastle College as well.
Yes.
As an executive principal. And I did that until 2022. In the meantime, this position had come up at the Education Training Collective, which caught my eye, if I'm honest, because of its journey, because of its story, because I'm from this part of the Northeast originally. So it felt like I'd come, round full circle, actually.
Come home, right? It's home. Where you started to where you finish. That's
right. Yeah. So I came to have a look at an open event as part of the selection process, and I just thought, this is great. What a fantastic group. Unfortunately, I was successful during the process and started in 2022. Been here about 3 years now.
Yeah. So a little bit about the college. How many campuses, how many students, how many staff?
Yeah, so we are a regional college group. We're made up of 6 parts, really, 4 main parts. We have 2 GFE, General Further Education colleges. One of them is this one, Stockton Riverside College, our largest part of the group. And our other FE college is Redcar and Cleveland College, which is in Redcar, obviously, just down the river, down the Tees, in Cleveland. That's right, as it suggests. Really interesting college. That's right next door to the biggest brownfield site in Europe, which is called Tees Works, which is really tipped to become a net zero hotspot for renewable energy. So some fascinating curriculum development we're involved in there. Those are our two large sites. We have a very successful sixth form college just north of us here in Stockton, a place called Billingham, and that's called Bede Sixth Form College. And then we have a specialist engineering academy, which is called NETA. It used to be the old ICI commercial training and apprenticeship training outfit. And we have a small alternative provision venue that we run in partnership with the council, Stockton Borough Council. And recently we've acquired a training company called Inner Summit, which specialises in professional services training, mainly apprenticeships. So that's our group in the round. Around 700 staff, and in total, if you count commercial provision as well, we've got around 12,000 students per year
It's a huge amount for the area. It's a lot of students. That's a lot of investment back into the community and the wider economy, right?
It is. I think, collectively, the colleges in the area, we work together. We call our group the FE Plus, which is our colleagues at Middlesbrough College, Hartlepool College, Darlington College, Northern School of Art. I think collectively we do pack quite a punch, actually.
Significant.
Yeah.
I'm very, from what I know in your curriculum offering, very specialised.
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time thinking about our area, the region, the Tees Valley, where we are, and we drew a strategic plan up to run from 2023 to 2026, and we spent a lot of time gathering evidence. Really, we worked with a third party who built up an evidence base around the skills, challenges, and opportunities in the area, and we've really tried to use that to think about our strategic choices for this group going forwards. No surprises in what they told us. It's very similar to what local skills improvement plans say, and also the emerging local growth plans. But there are challenges and opportunities around manufacturing, construction, huge opportunities in net zero and renewable energy production, health with chronic skill shortages, and as supply chains move in to this area, and as inward investment comes in, there is a lot of professional services opportunities as well. So we're developing specialisms and investing in resources and facilities to really sort of meet those skills needs, and it maps pretty well onto our geography and the specialisms that we've got in the different parts of the group.
Because we've seen that. We saw that without a lot of preparation in Manchester. So Manchester kind of got hit by this wave of money, let's call it investment. It came to Manchester quite quickly. And then we've had to scramble with not scramble, that's a harsh word, but we've had to adapt quite quickly to the emerging skills gaps. Yeah. Whereas it sounds here that we've met the needs of employers over time, and now we're in partnership, we're addressing those skills gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think partnership's a key word there, not only as a set of providers, but with the business community, the combined authority, the various local authorities. There's a really, really strong ethos of partnerships to meet those skills needs. But it's challenging. This is a challenging area. I think if you look at deprivation metrics and postcodes, we don't come out well as a region. And that's well known, the deindustrialisation of Teesside that's happened over decades. Similarly, if you look at the rise in NEETs, not employment, education and training, young people, we currently top the league, and we're approaching the 1 million mark nationally.
Though?
Yeah. So there are challenges. And that's why it's so important that, if there is going to be redevelopment, repurposing of industry, kind of inward investment come into the area, it's absolutely critical that we do everything we can to make sure that local people benefit from some of those opportunities that are coming to the area. And that's very much what drives us as an organisation. Yeah,
and you must be quite an experienced leader to have the helm here. How long have you been a leader within further education and skills?
Probably I started my management and leadership career probably really around 2010. So about 15 years, I'd say. At City and Islington College, I was a director of a Centre for Lifelong Learning, which is in Finsbury Park in London, still very much part of what is now Capital City College's group, I understand. And I think that's where I cut my teeth, really, as a leader, with that accountability for, the operations side, but also the strategic side and the financial side. Of quite a significant part of the college, and then I think like like most people, you just take on more responsibility and different.
Well, for 15 years from a director all the way up to the top job, principal and CEO. That's some would say meteoric. It's quite fast.
Yeah, it's been an enjoyable roller coaster of an experience. Certainly, Guy. I have very much enjoyed it, and I think I've been fortunate to have good mentors and people around me that I could learn from. I've been lucky to have opportunities presented that I've always tried to take advantage of, and I think I'm probably somebody who feels comfortable with responsibility, enjoys taking on responsibility, and wants to succeed.
Clearly,
I think it's important to deliver. Do you know, a quote that I often think of, self-esteem comes from doing hard things, doesn't it, really? And I think that's the bedrock of where self-esteem comes from. So,
and discipline.
And discipline as well.
If you did something easy every day, it does get easier to do easy things. I think that challenging yourself, taking yourself beyond where you maybe thought possible, will boost your confidence, your self-esteem.
Absolutely.
It's the discipline to just keep showing up.
Yes.
So what kept you in FE then? Because you've been in it for, well, not strictly FE, but education for 25 years. Why have you stayed?
That's a really interesting question, isn't it? I think I really like my job. I'm one of those lucky people that when I get up in the morning, I'm pretty motivated to get into work. No
Monday scaries?
Sometimes there's stuff in the diary that intimidates me a little bit, but then again, doing hard things is good for you, isn't it? And you learn from everything that you do. So, no, what really keeps me in FE is, and it may sound a little cliche, and I'm sure everybody in it will know what I'm talking about or say the same sort of thing. It's really just that satisfaction you get from the social mission and the value that you're demonstrably having on young people, on adults who are retraining, on meeting, employer partners' needs. It really, really is. Quite exhilarating, the impact that you have.
There's the golden word, I think. The impact that you can have in both by being boots on the ground and by being a strategic senior leader, is you get the real chance to change people's lives, which is, I think you're probably right. If you're in FE, not to positively impact people's lives, I think there's probably easier and maybe better things you could spend your time on, right?
Definitely. As well, and there's a lot of research out there, and the stats change, but on average, the citation is every pound spent in FE has a £9 ROI on average, and I think that's quite a conservative estimate. Some go up on that.
Has anyone told the Treasury that?
Well,
someone needs to have a word with the Treasury, I think.
Exactly, and when you're in the privileged position that I am, to be a leader of provision that has that kind of impact, it's quite a motivating and satisfying thing to be involved in. Definitely.
And what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get into FE now?
I would say certainly think about all of that benefit that you're bringing, and the purpose and the mission of what FE is all about. And if that floats your boat, if that's something that really excites you, that must be the first thing that you should think about. Let's face it, it is a challenging career. It isn't the highest paid career, generally speaking. In comparison to school teaching, it isn't as highly paid. So there are other reasons that would drive you to get into the sector. It's got to be about the difference that you can bring to people's lives. The other thing I'd say is once you are in FE and you are comfortable in it, and you realise that it's still something that gets you excited, the opportunities are absolutely endless, really.
I'm sat with a great example of what will happen if you say yes to opportunity.
Yeah.
You take on learning and you progress and you take the challenge. You take on responsibility certainly as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that's lost. I don't see a lot of colleges talking about progression at entry level. So I'm not talking, I am talking about it, but whatever the first step is on the ladder, be that a trainee lecturer, be it a trainee, we don't call them trainee lecturers, but for intensive purposes, a new graduate or a new assessor or a new learning support assistant. I don't know if you would agree with this, but I don't see enough talk about the fact that you could go from a ESOL educator in Eastern Europe to a principal of a very large college group. I don't think anyone thinks that's possible. Now, I can see it's possible. It's in front of me. Yeah. But what's your view on that?
I think you're probably right, Guy. I'd agree. I think we don't have the same career structures and well-trodden paths that you'd find in a lot of sectors and professions. Probably people kind of, find their way through the hierarchy, as it were, in quite an organic and unstructured way, and I myself, I'm one of those people. There could be more done to kind of map out, standardise, and create those career paths. I think college groups are quite good in that sense, and I benefited from that at NCG certainly, and I think at the ETC here as well. The benefits that you have with such a large portfolio, different geographies, admittedly in the same region here, but different specialisms, it does create opportunity for people. And we are very much about internal progression in this organisation. We value it, we try to foster it, and we're very focused on leadership development. And by leadership, I mean leadership in the sense that everyone's a leader, and it's about helping people with those attributes, behaviours, characteristics, accountabilities that'll help them to progress. And we've got some great stories here of apprentices progressing to become, group head of marketing, for example, is one of ours from an apprentice, and we've got lots of that. So very much about fostering and nurturing internal talent. But you're right, I think there could be more of that in a structured way across the sector.
I think if FE, as part of its Getting Into Teaching campaign, could add some complexities to sharing what progression could look like. We recently recorded a podcast talking about why people got into FE. And actually, this is another start point, right? Is actually there is progression available. And you've said it's not the most highly paid sector. I'm firmly of the belief it could do with more money, and we could do with paying people better. And whilst we haven't got that, I still think there are reasonable salaries across the country for challenging roles and for roles that give you so much to take home with you, because they don't give you loads of coursework and marking to take home with you. In colleges, they give you loads of passion and loads of energy to take home with you and get you excited to go back to work. And that's not, I wouldn't say it was all colleges, but I think most colleges have the intent that they leave people better than they found them. Yeah,
and there's a lot more than remuneration involved. Exactly as you say, Guy, there are lots and lots of other benefits to roles in FE, and I think they shouldn't be overlooked. You know, absolutely.
What's the biggest misconception then that someone would have about working in further education?
I think it's still widely misunderstood. Anyway, even. Not helped by the curriculum, and the complexity of the curriculum. I think the word FE in colleges means different things to different people, so that's probably what adds to the misconception. I think people would probably think it wasn't professionalised in the way that they see, schools or universities, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Could it?
Not from what I see,
as you know. I think probably people still have a certain view of technical and vocational education when thinking about academic.
We're talking about the whole naughty kids and the NEETs thing. It's like you go to college because you couldn't get into a sixth form.
I think there's still that misconception, isn't there? And I think that's changing. I think when you begin to see opportunities that apprenticeships offer in relation to, a first degree in terms of employability and debt avoidance. I think that message is getting through. And then you see things like T-levels, which challenge full on that notion that BTECs and vocational qualifications are not as valuable as A-levels. So I think it is changing, but this is a very slow process, because we're talking about culture here, aren't we, in society?
Societal culture. We're talking about the entire workforce of the UK and its perception of things, and that isn't something that's going to change tomorrow. But colleges such as yours make such a tremendous impact into that, and actually showing people that you can have a career, you can get well paid, and you can do it through a degree apprenticeship, you can do it through a level 3.
Absolutely.
I think there's some level 3 electricians on more than the Prime Minister, if I'm really honest with you. So I'm pretty sure there's routes if you apply yourself no matter what background. And
absolutely.
So the common misconception then we're thinking is that people think that FE isn't professionalised and it isn't doing what it is actually we see every day it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And this college and like all colleges would be able to give countless case studies of how fantastic careers have been spawned through FE. I mean, the last couple of years we've been running a scholarship program with BP, which has taken school leavers at 16 onto an engineering level 3 diploma that's been co-developed with BP.
Wow.
They've received £100 a week scholarship right through their 2-year programme. And then at the end of that, BP has stumped up apprenticeship opportunities for them, as have a range of other local engineering employers who've stood as a bystander to the programme and now want to take these people on as apprenticeships. So, that is just fantastic, isn't it? So
attracting an employer like BP.
Yeah.
Right? That is, for them to trust your delivery and how you deliver is a massive testament to the college itself and FE. It's not just the college, but massively so to you and your team for attracting large employers and getting them to commit to your process and work with you.
Absolutely.
To offer those opportunities.
And hats off to BP. They've not only done that, they've invested in resources to do that as well, and they've come in and they've been very much part of the delivery of the programme, and they've hosted the learners on site, etc. So if you think about a 16-year-old school leaver who didn't choose an academic route, within 5-6 years through that process, they could be working anywhere in the world in
jealous.
Renewable energy. Yeah, so these are the things that FE colleges do.
But schools don't.
I think,
right?
They can't.
They can't. And FE is that dynamic. It's a bit of a dynamo. It's the one that can combine employment and skills.
Absolutely.
And it's that gateway for those that don't want to go down to a degree route and don't want to. Even actually, that's not true. We have more and more degree apprenticeships on offer as a sector and as a space.
Yeah.
It leads me really neatly on, because hearing you talk about BP there and what you've done for your learners and how you've done that in partnership with others really gets me begging the question, what is your proudest moment in further education so far?
There's been a lot of proud moments, but I think, I've got to say this year we were recently inspected by Ofsted, and the report is just coming out this week. It's we just received the final report, and we managed to achieve an overall outstanding grade for the group. So whilst I attribute that work to the work of our fantastic colleagues, the staff, the team here, the Education Training Collective, and the amazing students who Ofsted was so full of praise for, I have to say that was a lump in the throat moment. I was delighted for that.
It's an interesting one. I think many people will be part of an outstanding journey in their careers. I think many people will contribute to an outstanding learner experience, therefore an outstanding Ofsted. But to be sat in the seat at the top, being responsible overall alongside the board for that outcome, that must really mean something across your 25-year career. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You and the wider team. So well done to ETC. I don't think we can top that. So that brings us really neatly on to talk, because culture has a massive part to play in delivering high performance teams and delivering your overall outcomes.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about ETC's culture and values?
Yeah, we have, I think, quite a unique culture here. It's something that attracted me to the organisation. When I came down to visit that first time, I could kind of feel that culture. I think there's something very special about it. We've got something, I think, that I'd not come across before, something we call our tone of voice. And it's based on our values, but I think it brings the values very much to life. And I won't quote the whole piece, but it says that, we're not showy, we're not brash, we're not arrogant, we're quietly confident, we don't overpromise, we do what we say we're going to do. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's our tone of voice. And there's something about that, I think, that speaks to people. If you were to approach a member of staff in this group, they would know about the tone of voice. They might not do even as good a job of paraphrasing it as me there, but they would tell you what it is, what it's about, and what the essence of it is. And I think we live that tone of voice day to day. I think it's very Teesside, actually. I think it's very, very much about the local character of the people. But I also think that it works as a useful framework for people with day-to-day behaviours. And actually, that's what culture's about, isn't it?
Because it's all about the behaviours, the behaviours and the values.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, because this is episode 9. Right. So I've sat in front of many senior leaders, and we've gone through values as single words. We've gone through the descriptions of values. We've been through guiding principles. We have been through memorable ones, things that spell things. We've not had a tone of voice, an organisational tone of voice, and I almost feel like that must be unique. But we will do this roadshow some more, and we'll do the dance. And if I come across anyone else with a tone of voice, so I imagine tone of voice works because it sets out the behaviours, and also it's very easy to say, well, that's not the way we do things.
Absolutely,
and refer to the way that you can almost infer the way it's been said is outside of the tone. So it's got more scope to be applicable in certain scenarios, right?
It has, and people use it exactly like that guy. In meetings, people say, well, hang on a minute, let's remember our tone of voice, or people will have that challenging conversation and have to raise something with somebody, and they may say, okay, and they'll reference the tone of voice, or people will call out things that they don't feel comfortable with and cite the tone of voice. So I think it's a really, really powerful thing, and it's very much valued by our corporation as well. So that notion that culture, is set at the highest point, because it is, isn't it? And it's carried out throughout the organisation. That it's very much a living thing, that tone of voice, and something we're proud of.
Falls to your lowest as well.
Yes,
it's that collective buy-in that you must have had to achieve outstanding. Can I ask, did you inherit that? Or did you, or was that here before? Or did
the tone of voice?
That?
Yeah, yes. It predates me.
Do you know where it came from? Who came up with it?
I understand it was a previous director of marketing, and if anybody's listening or watching to this, do identify yourself. I could probably find out by asking people in the organisation. But it's an ex-colleague who came up with this. But it's something. I think the fact that it's been transmitted and stands the test of time through employee to employee is really testament to how effective it is, doesn't it? One of the things about values, which this is a kind of expression of, I think, and something I learnt about reading Gung Ho, which is a book, you'll know Gung Ho, and they talk about values being rocks in the riverbed, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Immovable.
Lived.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think that's a good example of that, isn't it? I think it's something that's set in our riverbed here at the ETC, definitely.
See, I imagine when they first said that, because the standard acceptance is we have these 4 to 5 memorable values. Now, we have some people going against the grain here. We have tone of voice. We have guiding principles. These are culture isn't set by anyone. There is no one size fits all approach to culture. It is most definitely something that is unique and personal to each organisation. But I bet when he or she first said that, I bet someone went marketing spin. Right, and I reckon the process to embed those was an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I normally ask the question here is how did you identify those values? But it sounds like the values were predated.
Yeah.
So I'd probably like to know a little bit more about how we embed those values within the organisation. So you talked a little bit there about how people talk about it and bring it up.
Yeah.
Where is it in the organisation? Where could I find it? Where do I see it? Is it?
Yeah. I think what was really useful for me to really bring these values and tone of voice to the fore, re-establish them, was through the creation of a strategic plan. When I joined the group in 2022, a plan didn't exist in the form that it does now. So it was one of the first tasks that I wanted to work with the corporation on, to draw up that plan and think, well, okay, here I am in Teesside again.
I'm home. Let's get a strategy for how we're going to make it better.
Absolutely. You know, we're on a journey. We're a group that is formed of parts that have joined in at different phases. We've just had a great Ofsted because the previous inspection was good. So where do we go next? Where do we take the ship out of the harbour? So it was the first task I had to do, which actually is a great opportunity to reframe your values and your tone of voice. So through the creation of that strategic plan, we did a lot of work on, kind of polishing up the value and tone of voice, which existed, but just re-emphasising them.
Yeah, when we say polishing up, we didn't change them, we formalised them more, right? It was more about bringing it into something that was consumable as opposed to... Yeah. Polishing is a bit of an interesting word. It could suggest that they were scruffy or unkempt, but I think actually they sound pretty good, and we've just had to put them in a place.
Absolutely, resetting them. I think revisiting them. I think you always need to do that with any vision or plan. Anyway, there are points where you need to relaunch it. In a sense, it was an opportunity to relaunch that tone of voice and the values. But again, when I first came to the group, I said the tone of voice sort of spoke to me. It's kind of here. It's part of the DNA. The culture operates in that way. So, and we talk about them a lot. We talk about the tone of voice a lot. We're just at the halfway point of our strategic plan now. We've just gone past it. And again, I used that opportunity to assess progress, relaunched the plan, carried out series of town halls around the group, talked again about the tone of voice and the values, and just revisit it periodically. I think that's the job of a leader as well.
I think having them, knowing that they're embedded and knowing that they're working, and having the ratification that the outcome has certainly been a part due to that culture. I think normally I ask how people measure and record it, but I think here the outcome has made it clear, and there's a change coming, right? We are now outstanding, and how does that culture now support us to remain outstanding? And that'll be an interesting process to see if tone of voice is still relevant here. Your tone of voice is still relevant here. Yeah,
I think we've done some reflection as a team on, okay, now we're outstanding. What do we do now? And it's really clear that the job of work begins, doesn't it? Really. So we've got to be outstanding now. We've got to be exemplary. No organisation's perfect, and at any given time there'll be bits of what you're doing that isn't outstanding. Of course, there won't be. But we've got to really look at where the variability is across our group, and we've got to devote our energy to those spots, and do what we can to kind of make them as good as they can possibly be. We've got to keep taking action, basically. I think the way that we work together to move the organisation from a good judgment to being outstanding overall was by taking action. So we understood where the points were, where the work was needed, and we really, really honed in on those. but I think we've now, I'm hoping people are feeling really invigorated by this, and that we'll see new initiatives come and new developments come out of it as well. That's my real hope.
Yeah, because I think people play to a framework. If they're trying to be outstanding, they look at what others have done to become outstanding. I mean, Ofsted do tell you what you have to do, so there is a framework. Now you can do it. Well, what's next? And is that what's beyond outstanding? What comes next, I guess? And is the tone of voice going to now shape us to be whatever comes next? And you said a good phrase earlier. You said you're going to push the boat out, take the boat from the harbour. I'd be very interested to know what an outstanding college does to take the boat from the harbour. But I guess that's something we'll talk about in a few years' time, because we're going to go through a journey from here.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
You've achieved outstanding. Your culture has it's a voice. Does it differ then from campus to centre to your assessors out on site? How does the voice change?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and it's something that really I spent a lot of time reflecting on. When I arrived at the ETC, our colleges and our parts are very different, and they're serving different communities. They have different curriculum offering, so that clearly will breed and enable different climates, I would call them, between the different parts of the group. And I think that's valuable. I think that isn't something you want to lose. And as the group was built over the years, there was very much a feeling of local colleges for local people. And that was the kind of mode of operating. And I think it served the group very, very well. But actually, I think I felt we were at a point when I arrived that it was time to try to pull things together and to unify that culture. So we've done an awful lot of work on this term that we're using about being one ETC. Yes. So, that is the umbrella brand of the group. And it's certainly one that's recognised by businesses and, peer providers. It isn't one that our students affiliate themselves to. No. They know their college brand. So there was a task there to really bring that feeling of being part of the group together. The first thing I did was think about belonging, actually, and I was inspired by a book that was recommended to me by our chair of corporation, and the book is called Belonging. Author's called Owen Eastwood.
Yes, I know the book.
And some really powerful messages in there about how important it is those in an organisation. Lots of it's sports based, isn't it? And which is some great context.
Teamwork.
But that sense of what is this organisation? Why is this organisation? What is it trying to achieve? What's the history of it? How do I fit in? Is really powerful stuff. And one of the things I did is mapped out the history of the ETC, and we mapped it all the way back to 1700s from the William Turner School.
1709.
Right up to present day, through the Mechanics Institutes in Stockton, through the technical colleges in both Redcar and Cleveland, the formation of the sixth form college, and the development of the NEETA Engineering Academy, which is part of ICI originally. Yeah. So we were able to trace this route of technical education for Teesside, across Teesside, throughout history. And I spoke to colleagues and staff about, you're part of this tradition of technical education for employers and employment throughout all of the rich heritage that the Tees Valley can boast from its industrial past. And what really speaks to people about that is that, so many, if you talk to the staff and the colleagues here, their families, their mothers, their fathers, they were part of those industries, and their current family members are part of the evolved industries, so very much steeped in this area. And I think there's a lot of pride in that. So I used that sense of belonging to the group and what our kind of, makeup is, and how important we've been to industry here in Teesside, to sell that message very much about us being one ETC college group. And that's had quite a powerful effect, I think. So now we produce newsletters on that theme. It's the collection of good news stories from around the group.
Is that weekly, monthly? We
do it every term.
Okay.
So we collate we've just recently launched a virtual staff room, which is a similar kind of thing. We're using Viva Engage, where it's a kind of Facebook, LinkedIn
staff engagement platform, right?
Staff engagement platform, which people are beginning to use across the group, to share, it's great for culture building, isn't it? And that sense of unity. Annually, and this will be the third year now this summer, we invite colleagues from across the group to work together on community projects and give a staff volunteering day for everybody to work together on projects. So there's activity like that we do really to promote that sense. But importantly, back to what you were exploring, Guy, it's very important still to maintain the tribe they feel part of in their own setting, be that Redcar or Stockton or Nita, because that there's something special about those individual parts of the group as well.
That serves its unique community, and I think the voice sounds like it allows that recognition of differing cultures. I think culture runs aground when the standards drop, but actually, if you hold people to a baseline standard, which is the voice. People can exceed it if they wish to, but they can never compromise it.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you've got that right. But you touched on some really interesting bits there. I think the core emotion, really interestingly, because humans do things for generally speaking, intrinsic things. You talked a lot about belonging, which for me is then brought into community, which is then brought into combating loneliness. So really interestingly, if you create cultures where people feel like they belong, they feel like they're part of something, humanistically, we're actually combating loneliness.
Absolutely.
Because they want to be part of a pack. And so if you can galvanize people behind a sense of, you are safe here, we are building something together, you're part of the pack, you're part of the team, and you use that word again, that's really special. And if you can get people to be behind that, you've done a great job. You kind of talked there about the fact that students wouldn't know ETC. Would the students know the voice? Would they understand your organisational tonality?
It isn't. I don't think it's common lingua franca for students. We have other language that we've developed through tutorial, and we developed through the curriculum that we work with for students on that. And I don't think it. I think it works on a staff level and a colleague level rather than on a student level.
But would the students feel like they belong? Because
absolutely,
100%. Then I think you're wrong. I think the student might not know the voice, but they definitely know the intention of the voice.
Absolutely, and they tell us that. They tell us that, and again, I'll refer to the Ofsted report. It talks a lot about that, and it talks about how students feel they belong. And it uses words like students thrive and students flourish. And I have to admit, I had a lump in my throat reading that. I thought, well, that is fantastic, isn't it? And our students tell us that through the student voice activity that we do, which is nothing different to other colleges.
Student voice as a standard framework, as opposed to this custom cultural voice where you have a standard student voice. So absolutely. I think you're wrong. I think you were wrong there. I think absolutely. I think your students would be able to communicate the intention of the voice. They just don't know it's whispering in their ear, I guess.
Yeah. It isn't a slogan we use with them, and it isn't a kind of it isn't language we use with them. But you're absolutely right. I think it stems from the behaviour that they see and is expected of them by the college and by the adults working with them, that it's a role modelling kind of effect, isn't it, really? So
and everybody does that. That's the rules.
Yeah.
So then it's safe to say that this culture and this voice has absolutely positively impacted the workforce here.
Yeah, I think we're in a very, very good place. Again, the mechanisms we have for, staff engagement, staff voice, tell us that. We have very high levels of participation in surveys.
Okay.
Mid 90%.
That's high.
It's incredibly high.
The previous high figure that I thought was incredibly high was 92%.
Right, I was 94 this year, just gone. Plus, we get very, very good ratings within them as well. So the survey results are very satisfied staff. Yeah, we have our pressure points like all colleges. So, colleagues will rightly talk to us about pay. We know it should be better in the sector, and I'm with them on that. There's only so much you can do, but you've got to look at other ways to, remunerate people, make people feel valued, make people belong. And I think it's that bit that we do well here at the ETC.
So, really interestingly, with the voice, I almost always know the answer when people say about values and who's in charge of culture. But who's in charge of the voice?
Everybody.
It goes back to everyone. We all have a joint responsibility to contribute to it.
We do. I think it's lived out through day-to-day behaviours, day-to-day interactions. And if, people work by and live by that tone of voice, then it lives, doesn't it, really? As I say, it's something that, will be talked about in our corporation meetings, and I have one this evening, and it's very common that people
it's going to be a positive one.
The tone of voice. Yeah. These are quite good.
So, culture is such a complex thing. The reason I started this podcast is because actually I sought to understand it better, not just for colleges. I want to understand it for people. I've got a bit of a pet project at the minute. I want to get to a point where I'm able to map the British workforce culture.
All right.
Which ambitions of grandeur here, my friend.
That's interesting.
Really interestingly, it's such an evolving thing that the study I'm doing is trying to understand if you can measure it and as it changes. So is there anything you do to measure this voice? You've got your staff engagement pieces, but is there anything beyond that? Can you tell when the voice is loud, when it's quiet, when it's growing, when it's retreating, or?
Yeah, I think you've got to be visible. You've got to. I think leadership is a full contact sport, isn't it? I think you've got to create the spaces and the safe spaces for people to talk, and that's the way that you measure things and you pick things up.
What does that look like for you? Is that employee forums? Is that a feedback mechanism? What's the specific thing you do to gather that? Yeah,
so we have a range of ways to do that. I do a termly, what I call Chief Exec's Focus Group, where there's an open invitation for colleagues, and I'll visit all of our main sites to do that. And I'll get a group of, 10 to 15 colleagues generally take me up on the offer. And there's no agenda. And people can talk to me about what they're proud of, what isn't going so well, ideas they've got, what they think should be better. I also use it as an opportunity to communicate some things I think it's important that would help them to know, or things that might be of professional interest to them as well. So I call it professional dialogue. And that tells me a lot about, and it is billed as a safe space. There's no names attributed to, who might have said what. And that certainly tells me a lot. And I'm not the only person who does that. So our director of human resources, people development, she does similar things. She informally sits down with our trade union representatives, out with the formal structures to do things like that. We've recently adopted step down kind of interviews where my deputy, he has currently sat down and had confidential, informal discussions with, the direct reports of the layer that report to him.
Okay.
And that's revealed, some really great stuff and some things that actually we could learn from that. Then we might need to make some changes there to.
That's really interesting, because that would typically be frowned upon. I think in standard management practices, that would be called jumping a layer, right?
Yeah, it's done with consent.
Yeah, but if you do it, people see feedback as a demon, as an enemy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's negative, so we'll stay away. And all I ever want is the positive praise. I challenge anyone to get better through constant positive praise. If anything, I've seen that go the other way.
Absolutely.
And to put yourself out there to have to hear that and willingly do it.
Yeah.
That shows a lot about the organisational culture, but also more about the empowerment of the individuals within the organisation.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that.
Absolutely.
So I took from that road shows, I took from it employee forums, safe spaces. It sounds like your forums aren't just tea and biscuits. It sounds like they get into the detail of what can make this organisation better, and then we take that.
Yeah.
Do we go back to them and say what we took from those meetings and deliver?
Yeah, we have a you said we did type approach.
You say that like it's standard.
Yeah.
It's not standard.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, I'm not talking about colleges at this point, but I'm talking about organisations.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not a lot of space for a feedback loop to be recognised and then verbatim responded. I've done it every month now for about 9 months, but I picked that up through this podcast.
Right.
But prior to that, they would have fed back and I would have emailed back personally and answered just to them. And now we answer to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, if you want to ask people about how they're feeling and how things are, and they make recommendations to you through that, if you don't have a you said we did kind of mechanism, you can't be acting on the things that or even if you are, they won't know, so they won't bother next time.
What you hadn't.
So it's really important, and we try and distill it, to make it meaningful. So if you look in our staff common areas along the way there's a poster and it'll have 3 or 4 points about, you've raised these things, and because of that we've tried to do this. The spirit is very much, there's no magic wand to this, and we'll try to see
we'd all be outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another really important ingredient in terms of what we do that drives culture but also drives expectations and standards is our quarterly review and business planning process. So we've got a process which is really embedded in the organisation, whereby every quarter there is a departmental by departmental review of quality, finances, people, engagement, any available metrics, future plans, etc. And that's the support departments as well as the curriculum departments. And that leader of that department comes to a formalised process. Increasingly, we've been using AI to crunch data to save us time analysing the data, and we've checked it before. But it's a conversation, again, it's a professional dialogue. And importantly, it really helps us know at all points through the year, where the plane is and are we going to land the plane kind of thing.
I challenge anyone to get real-time daily data in FE. That's too much. But quarterly deep dives, understanding the real core purpose of what they've been up to and whether those metrics are going the right way or not. That's huge. And I think actually touch on something that's so important to culture there, which is really good professional one-to-ones.
Absolutely.
And making sure that people feel heard, understood, and part of something, right?
Yeah. And accountable as well. That's the key thing as well, Guy, because I think for professional development, it's great because, that person who's having to answer those questions from the most senior people in the organisation, they're given the autonomy and the scope to deliver their budget, but there's an expectation that they will deliver on that budget and it won't cost more, and we know things change, but there are certain quality outcomes that are expected, and it's like running your mini business, isn't it, within the college and the group. And so as a first management opportunity to have to do that, I think we afford greater financial autonomy and accountability in this group than a lot of other similar colleges do. But with that, there are strings attached, and there is an expectation and accountability that goes with it.
Positive strings.
Absolutely.
Because through that accountability, you grow and you become someone who can be trusted.
Absolutely.
And the more trusted you are, the more responsibility you can have, and the more the college has ambitions of growth, the more that you can fuel that growth through your organisation. So I think smart move. 10 points.
Self-esteem comes from doing hard things, right, as well. Yeah.
So that closes off the culture section, but I feel like that could have gone on a bit longer, but I'm acutely aware our audience will have a time limit.
Sure.
I know we can't keep them trapped here forever, but I'm sure there'll be more to come. So we move swiftly into a section that is all about your employees and why people choose to work at ETC. So other than pay, benefits... Well, no, stupid way to ask the question. What are the top 3 reasons that you think people join ETC?
I think we've got some tangible, proposition benefits, and we've got some less tangible, but more or equally important, I think. So if I had to pick 3, I think we've got some pretty good tangible ones. I think we want to remunerate our colleagues to the best of our possible ability, and that's something I stand in front of staff and say. It may be not what some trade unions want. It may not be what is being asked for, and I understand all of that. But we will remunerate as best we possibly can, and I do know that regionally we are in step with that. But around that we have certainly reward gateway. Services that are very much a benefit to colleagues, assistance programs, all of that kind of stuff. So I think we spend a lot of time on those tangible benefits to make them as good as they can be. But really, I think it ties in a lot with what we were talking about earlier around that social mission, that belonging, and also that vision of what we're trying to achieve. I think internally at the group we have managed to express that quite clearly, and I do know from talking to colleagues who have joined us recently and as part of their induction, they say to me that they understand the strategic direction of the group, that they like that tone of voice, and that they feel that they're part of something that's quite special and quite driven. And then I think the third benefit, I think it has to come from the performance element of the group. We are a high-performing group. That it was when I joined, but we've now had a great Ofsted testament to that, and I think we therefore offer a measure of professional pride for people who would want to come and be part of that. So those would be the 3, Standout.
That's what brings people here.
Yeah.
So how does ETC support people's progression beyond that? So they're through the door, they've joined for the right reasons, the reasons we've listed. What do we do with them once they're here?
Yeah, I think professional development's very important at all roles, and like any organisation, I'm not saying we've got that right. I think it's a moving feast, and you've got to keep a weather eye on it all the time, and it takes a lot of energy to do. If you come and work at the ETC, you can expect a great welcome, a really thorough induction, and really clear, accountability and lines of reporting. But then through our talent management processes, everybody should be having those conversations about how they can progress, how they can be better, and what their future progression is. We now have a new colleague who's joined us, who's brought in some really new concepts and really new ideas in the Director of People Development and HR role. And she's very much looking at how we restructure our appraisal, talent management and succession planning to try and turn the volume up on that and make it even more prominent.
And tie it back to your strategic plan, because as you grow, you're going to need skills of the future.
Absolutely.
And you will find some of those skills in this room, and you'll find them here, but you will need more of them, right? Absolutely.
Do you know, leadership development's really important to us, and we do have formal structures for doing that. So we work with third parties to come and run, leadership management programs. We've had some very successful cohorts have progressed through that. We've organised a leadership conference annually, which brings in some local luminaries from the industry world to talk about their leadership journeys, and that's offered to a range of colleagues at all different levels. We make use of coaching, executive coaching for people who would benefit from it, but also we've developed peer coaches internally, and our new director is very keen to to roll that out as well. So it is something really important. I think you mentioned the changing world. We're really embracing AI, and we realise that it's going to change the way that we work and the way the world works.
Hopefully less marking is all I've heard so far.
Less
prep and less marking is all I've heard out of AI, but we might have more to bring, right?
Well, I think we're just in the foothills of this stuff, aren't we, really? And already we are using it for lesson planning, for resource creation, and for assessment, etc. But we're training students in its use. We've developed a kind of policy for its use within the curriculum, and we've also got some targeted administrative and support functions already that we're harnessing AI for. My plan in the coming months is that we train all staff in appropriate use of AI using an accredited qualification, and we do that by role. So we'll train our admin functions, our HR functions, our curriculum functions through different kinds of use of AI in that.
It's quite an interesting thing because people are quite scared of it. They're scared of AI and what it will bring. And what I've been saying to everyone is AI isn't going to get rid of you, but it might replace you if you don't embrace it.
Yeah,
it'll
absolutely.
be the people that are going to weaponize AI to really turbocharge their roles and what they can do and what they can achieve and the efficiencies it will drive.
Yeah.
Those that are scared of it and going, we're not going to use that, you're going to very quickly find yourselves thinking, well, I wish I had done. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key is to make sure your students, your staff, and your everybody is ahead with it.
Absolutely.
Not behind.
I mean, for me, and I can't know this, I don't think any of us can know this, and there are so many different views on it. It could replace a wide range of occupations and jobs, but it's probably more likely to replace certain tasks in most jobs.
Yes.
And I think that's what we should focus on. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, once quantum computing becomes available to consumers, and we have a kind of coalition of AI and quantum computing, I don't think any of us know what that could mean, and it might be totally different.
Fear.
So there is that fear element there.
Yeah, I am. So although I'm here saying I'll embrace it, I promise you I'll embrace it. But if you put it on turbo drive, I don't even know how long I can hang on to that rocket for.
No. Well, I recently, I don't know if you've had a look at Grok 3, which is the kind of, it's the OpenAI successor to ChatGPT.
Yep.
I think it was just released this year or last. Have a try at Grok 3. It's like it's turbocharged ChatGPT. I mean, it's much more natural. It's faster. It's incredible, and that really made me think. Once you start to see these humanoid robots, which are being developed by Elon Musk, and
that's right. They want a robot in every home by 2035, right? They want to replace. They do want to replace maids and cleaners in rich people's homes. That's the article I got stuck on. I was thinking, a robot to cook your dinner. I'd eat healthier if the robot was cutting my calories for me.
Absolutely.
We've definitely digressed from supporting progression, but it sounds like we're going to use a mixture of leadership development. We have all sorts of things on offer, but then we're also going to start enhancing our workforce with AI tools and beyond.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So in your experience then, what's that one biggest reason that people join ETC and the wider FE sector?
Yeah. Certainly for the ETC, we do enjoy a good reputation here locally. So many people that I meet, they were at the college, their spouses work at the college, they are an employer that uses so we have such a close kind of relationship with the communities that we serve, and I think that goes a long way. I think that colleagues who work here, they do bring in friends and network that also come and work here as well. So there's a huge range of factors, and then all of those reasons about our employee value proposition I mentioned before, I think that does act as something that makes people feel welcome and they want to come.
And why do they then stay? Do you think it's the same thing that brings them through the door that keeps them here?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think for most people, and obviously not everybody, and obviously the organisation won't be right for everybody, and we have turnover, and we have healthy turnover.
Is that first year turnover? Do you tend to find that people, if they're going to leave, they leave early as opposed to late?
Generally, yeah, that generally seems to be the pattern. It varies from role to role and responsibility, but and I think that's the right thing. But I think for most, they realise that what they imagined it would be, or what we kind of promised when we sold it to them, and developed that individual personal contract with them, which is effectively what you do, don't you, outside of the formal contract. Yeah, they experience it and think, that is what I was expecting, and then they get all of the benefits and the exciting things that working in FE gives you,
innovation and excitement.
Yeah.
So if you could improve one area of what you offer staff at ETC, what would you change?
I would like to see staff in the sector, in all roles, teaching and support, remunerated to the degree that you might find in other sectors and other areas of employment. And it isn't always the case. It is sometimes, but it isn't always the case. So if I could take, for example, teaching staff in FE, not precluding others, but just focusing on them, they are paid at a lower annual, remuneration salary than school teachers are.
By about 10,000 is the latest stat coming out.
That's right. And that gap isn't closing.
No.
And, that is just wrong.
Totally.
It's completely wrong. And it acts as a challenge to bring people into the sector. It certainly acts as a challenge in particular industries to bring in industry professionals. And it also, morally, it isn't right. Given the centrality and the fundamentality of skills to everything that's needed in the UK.
You mean the entire economy?
And the economy, in terms of productivity, in terms of social inclusion, it's really hard to square that rectangle, isn't it, really? That would be the overriding thing that I wish we could do.
Perfect. And I think that brings to a close what we offer as part of ETC, what we offer as our EVP, which brings us really neatly on, Grant, to a section that I'm sure you're going to love, which is entirely about you.
Okay.
So if you could define your leadership style in one word, what would it be?
One word.
You can have two if you really want.
Quietly effective, with a hyphen in the middle. How about that?
I'll take it as two words. Quietly effective. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I'm really focused on achieving the best outcomes that I can with the resources that I've got. My role is to lead a team of talented people and marshal the resources we've got to get the very best learning experience as a college. And that's why I need to be effective. It's got to be effective. Everything I do, I think about what my job's to create value. What value am I creating within those parameters? So that's why I would describe my leadership style as being that. But I'm an introverted person. I'm fairly quiet, and I think I'm fairly humble, to be quite frank. And I think there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there?
I feel like you say
leadership.
so what quite a lot. I feel like people would come to you with things and you'd say, I love it, but so what? How's that going to move the needle for the student?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a bit of you. I think that quiet confidence of to say, I understand, I recognise, but so what?
That thought does cross my mind, Guy, when sometimes when propositions come in. Absolutely. The old "does it make the boat go faster" analogy
Absolutely.
is really important, because we have a finite financial resource, human resource, finite bandwidth in terms of what we can do, and sometimes there's enough on the dance floor, isn't there?
Just got to make some of it work, right?
Absolutely.
And in your career then, which is long, have you had any standout role models that really make you think, yeah, these people have inspired me in my journey? Yeah.
So if I think about from a career perspective, there are two real leaders that I'd highlight, and I really hope they won't mind me saying this, and I'm sure they won't. How could they? When I first became a manager, I was an ESOL curriculum manager, and my boss then was a lady called Lynette Oliphant at City and Islington College, and I learnt so much from her. And to this day, I think she's probably one of the most rigorous and robust managers I've come across, actually, in terms of accuracy, standards, etc. But done in such a kind of collegiate and endearing way, human way. That's the word.
To nail process and procedure and be a human is a very when they're reading out the contracts when you're buying something and you're going yeah. That's what feels like when people apply process and procedure to you. But if you can get them to stick with rigor to process and procedure whilst enjoying it, that is a skill. And I quite a lot of what we've talked about is probably tracked back to some of those behaviours. So I see where that's come from.
So she's fantastic. She's retired now, but she really sticks in my mind. Another sector leader, very well known in the leader. I worked at City and Islington College for Frank McLaughlin, Sir Frank now, and Frank was an incredible principal and chief exec to work for then, and I think I learnt so much from Frank in terms of how to drive change, how to create culture. Accountability was something that I very much learnt from Frank.
Can't escape that.
No.
You need to get Frank on the podcast if he's taught you all of this.
He was a director of leadership at the ETF most recently, but he was very much the architect of City and Islington College, that was an outstanding college, and I just think a great luminary of the sector, and I've benefited a lot from his mentoring and leadership style.
And beyond that, then, so two really strong role models that are clearly culture and people driven, which is clearly very much about you, Grant, and your background. Are you undertaking anything at the moment that's going to take you further as a leader within further education, studying anything, courses, anything? Yeah,
I'm not doing anything formal at this time, actually, Guy. What I would say is, though, I'm getting an incredible amount of development from some of the activities I do outside of my role, particularly as a trustee, a trustee of an autism charity here in Middlesbrough called Maine. I've been, until recently, doing some primary school governance work. So I've learnt an awful lot there. Being on the other side of the table, in that respect, has been great for professional development. I do a lot of reading and podcasts. I've got quite a long commute, so I listen to a lot of leadership podcasts. I think informal development is really important. The stuff you're reading, the stuff you're listening to, and I'm just really interested in learning from the wider field as well. I think the more horizon scanning you do, the more looking at different sectors. Huge fan of politics and history podcasts, and technology podcasts. I think you just learn so much
You're a
from
fan
that.
of The Rest is Politics?
Love it.
They're hilarious.
Always,
I have to listen to them 1.75 times.
Right, yeah.
But they are great, and I find them
Fantastic.
quite funny. And also because it's left and right,
Yeah,
I don't feel like I'm a traitor listening to either side of the opinion, right? I just feel like I'm getting it all.
absolutely.
I see what you're saying with I'm also a chair of a charity, so I run a youth development charity in Bristol. Well, that we look after youth and elders. Actually, it's a large community centre, and I've learned more about governance and leadership when you've got no time and no money.
Yeah,
Than I have running a large business, and I've learned a lot in both of those roles.
Yeah.
But the one where I can't just go, right, well, we've got a bit of budget here, we'll move that. It's like, no, guy, you've got no money and you have no spare people.
yeah.
Okay, so what have we got to do then? Well, you have to get creative really quickly, and I imagine that's got to be the set.
Definitely.
I can't presume to understand the charity you mentioned, but I imagine that there's some charities face a lot of the same problems.
They do. Yeah, you've nailed it there, Guy. Definitely.
So your career, which has spanned 25 years, that's got to qualify you to give a bit of advice to future FE leaders. So what is your hang your hat on to future FE leaders? What should they do?
I think you're going to have to work hard. It is hard work. I think you're going to have to make the sacrifices to do that. You've got to want to be accountable. You've got to enjoy taking on responsibility. And you've got to look for the opportunities and take them when they're offered. And again, you develop by doing difficult things. So if that's something that you feel you want to get involved with, then that would be my advice. I think it won't be for everybody though as well. So I think you've got to have an honest self-reflection. Is that am I happy with that? Do I want to be accountable for a large budget? Do I want to be, the person where the buck stops? Do I want to have to be the chief storyteller? All of that kind of thing. Can I go out there and do the external stuff that's required? If you can, brilliant, go for it. It's such a rewarding career. It's a real privilege, I think, to do that. And I think I've got the best job in the world, actually. Really enjoy it.
Fantastic. So we've obviously got some existing leaders. We've got lots of leaders within further education. They're going to be facing some challenges. In your personal view, what's the biggest challenges that people are going to come up against in the next sort of 5 years?
I think delivering more for less is going to be one of those challenges. I don't think we're going to see more comfortable financial times into the future. I think the challenge of really deep and impactful partnerships is going to be a key challenge. I think that's without those, I don't think colleges will flourish and FE will flourish. So we're going to have to be really innovative with that. Technology is going to be a massive disruptor and influencer. Go on then. How do you see AI impacting further education? Well, I think when AI first became consumably available, and I used to say, it's only as old as my shoes, but it's probably not now. It's a couple of years, isn't it? But it was a really narrow focus on plagiarism, wasn't there? There was a moral panic about plagiarism. But thankfully we've kind of grown up a bit from that phase, and we're starting to realise the benefits of AI in education. So it's how do you harness and embrace those benefits, conscious of all the dangers, the threats, and the plagiarism, etc., into something that is accelerating at a pace that not even those who are creating this stuff are probably ready for. Know it's going to go. Altman, he said, I don't want to do this yet. Yeah. So we have to control it, but absolutely, it is coming faster than we want it to. It is, and it's a fantastic thing, but it's something that has got to be really well navigated. And it's not just how we use it; it's how we're training people for the workplace, because all this stuff is the same challenge in the workplace as well. So I think that's going to be an enormous impact on training and education generally. What's the sort of biggest impact you could see in the next
6-12 months for being for a lecturer, let's say?
I think there's a lot of efficiency and productivity gains there. I think there's a lot of time won that can be used on other things, which is really positive. I think there's impact on assessment that has to be looked at, because yes, the genie's out the bottle. How are we going to assess students in an AI world?
How do we interview people in an AI world when their CV wasn't written by them?
Exactly. We don't know what's real and what's not sometimes, do we? But that said, there are higher order skills that have to be developed since this stuff exists. So, is there a piece where you may think, yeah, AI, go for it, but we want to see what you can produce using AI and we'll assess that, or is there a piece where, right, we absolutely don't want any AI here, so it's a closed book, pen and paper exam time again.
We turn the internet off, we turn their phone off, and we say, this is just you it's just you and some paper. Tell us what you can do. Absolutely.
So there's a whole range there that needs to be thought through.
I think that'd be quite silly, to be fair. I think the best option is to say, well, look, you've got AI in front of you, show us what you can do with it.
Absolutely.
I think the pen and paper is a bit back to the dark ages.
Not suggesting any pens and paper.
No, really. But I think that's such an interesting... It's a very interesting period to be a senior FE leader.
It is.
A very interesting period to be within further education skills, because we're going to be responsible for making sure these students understand it, right? Secondary has a responsibility. Primary has a responsibility. Not sure I think we should let kids out on AI yet, maybe, for anyone who's thinking about that. Mm-hmm. But certainly they can see the impacts of it. Yeah. I was listening to a really interesting podcast about using AI catch-up tutors for GCSE.
Yeah.
And wow, meet the student where they are. Right, yeah. They do a basic test with the AI robot. They get back their skill level. The AI robot then brings them up through learning.
Yeah,
and personalised.
Yeah, and there are so many applications of AI that people probably aren't aware of as well. So you can ask the robot, okay, you produced this essay. Why did you structure it in that way? And it will tell you why it structured it in that way. So what could be better for exploring lesson planning, exam question planning with A-level students, for example? Or what could be better than to test yourself, challenge yourself against the robot to answer an A-level exam question? So, the benefits are massive, but, we've just got to navigate our way through them.
And that kind of really neatly brings us to a close, I think. I think that was a very informative period. I've really enjoyed the questioning, Grant, but thank you so much, and thank you to everyone listening, and thank you for inviting us up.
Thank you, Guy.
ETC.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.